All right, so if you found this video, then you're probably looking for a way to grow those glutes or get them stronger. Either way, I got you covered. We're gonna go over my 3 favorite glute exercises. I'm gonna show you how to tweak each form in every single variation we do so you can really isolate those glutes, keep it out of your hamstrings, keep it out of your lower back, and really just overload those glutes. So let's get after it. All right, so the first thing we're starting up with is hip thrust. Now I love these. I've heard people argue against these because it doesn't have a great range of motion. They say do sumo deadlifts instead. We're gonna get to those. But to me, this is the absolute best exercise for glutes because you can overload those glutes. I mean, you could fill out this entire bar. The things you're gonna need though, if you're gonna go really heavy on these, you need this pad because it's gonna kill the crest of your hips right there. But you also need this pad too. I do both of them, right? I'll throw this on top, roll that one on top of it. It's just that much more cushioned. I don't even think about anything here. It's all just the motion of the actual movement. And then you want to get your feet right. I'll show you how to set up your feet to where you're going to want to put them nice and wide, but also turn those toes out just a hair because you want to keep it out of the hamstrings. If you keep those feet straight, you're going to feel it drive through your hamstrings and then into your glute. So you might tire those out first. You don't want that, right? You want to turn those toes out just a hair so you push that energy along the side of your leg and into those glutes. And then also focus on keeping that back arch. You never want to let that back bow at the bottom because then you're running the risk of hurting yourself, right? So keep that back arched and keep that entire weight right in those glutes. All right, so when you set up those feet, get a little wider than shoulder width, and then you're gonna wanna turn those toes out just a hair, right? That'll put all that pressure on the outside of your leg and then drive into those glutes. Keep it out of the hamstrings. Side note, if you're having a hard time connecting with those glutes, right? You just feel like this is just a movement, you can't really fire the same way you should, use one of these, right? Just simple, they call them booty bands, whatever you want to call it, right? Throw this above your knees. And what it's going to do is it's already going to engage those hips right away. You're going to feel your glutes from the start. And the nice thing is you don't have to really think about contracting it because you're focused on keeping those knees wide the whole time. They're already contracted, right? So they're moving through the movement, they're contracted. It's going to give you a better squeeze. It's a better movement overall. I usually do this unless I'm going super heavy. If you go super heavy, all you're trying to focus on is just getting the weight up. So I don't recommend it at that point. But if you're doing something like this, or you got a glute drive at your gym, whatever it may be, this is a great variation to add so you really connect with the muscle the entire time. All right, now this is a magical piece of equipment right here. Now if you don't have it, don't stress. I'm gonna show you a variation on the back extensions. It's just as good. This is just a little more comfy. This pad is wonderful, right? So key here, knees go nice and wide. Your feet have to be turned out as much as humanly possible. I'm not saying like a slight bit. If you can crank those things all the way out to the side, the better. Because if you go straight, you're screwed. That's gonna be all hamstring. The key is turning those feet out and it's gonna mimic the hip thrust completely, right? It's the same movement with those hips. Everything's driving through those hips the whole entire time. Your back's out of it. I'm actually gonna have you sometimes on this variation. You can roll your back forward so the movement stops your glutes. You can't even flex that lower back up. So let me show you. All right, so the cool thing about this is you can advance it a couple different ways. One way, you could just grab a dumbbell. Simple, easy, barbell, doesn't matter. Just grab a weight that way, do the same exact motion I showed you. Another way is you can grab another band like this, or in conjunction with that, grab a band like this, and what you're gonna do this time, instead of putting it right above your knee, you scoot up even higher. Basically, it's gonna be right below your junk, because the key here is you want to keep that tension on your hips, right? So still you want that tight, nice tight tension, but you need it high enough where you can keep your knees really open, because like we did on here, it's gotta be that inner part of your thigh laying on top of there so you still get that same hip thrust motion. All right, so like I said, you can still do the same motion on hyperextension here, but again, a little difference here is pad's not as comfy, but you're still gonna lay those hips over top, knees go nice and wide. And obviously this is kind of a special, hyperextension. It's a little bit wider than most. So you're not gonna have this much room to use your feet. All you're gonna do is put your feet as far as you can to the edge where your toes are hanging off and still turn those toes out as much as possible. All right, so the last thing we're gonna do is sumo deadlifts, not just because they're a great movement, but also because I wanna tweak the form a little bit. I see a lot of people do these, but they're looking at either power lifters, Olympic deadlifts, and they're treating them that way, when I really think you should turn it into that same hip thruster motion, but in the form of a sumo deadlift here. So key on this one, Don't go too wide with your feet. You go too wide and you really can't rotate those hips without causing some sort of impingement in there, and you're feeling that motion kind of get locked on the way up. So what you want to do is a little bit wider than shoulder width. Toes go out a hair. Knees are going to push out a ton. Again, a lot of these movements, whole focus should be on, are my knees pushed out? And you're going to grab nice and close. And the key here is what I see a lot of people do, and I just think it's just bad form, right? I'm not saying you're guilty of this, but if you are, fix it. So a lot of people, what they do is they try to do these and they stay up and down the whole time, right? So they go into a sumo and they think they need to be up and down. And yeah, it hits your glutes because you're driving from basically a squat position and you're pulling those glutes to the bottom. But what I want you to do here is actually find a position where you can push those hips out and rotate over top of them and drive them forward. So if you're here, what you want to do is push that butt back to start. And I'll film it from a different angle so you can see a little bit better. But that butt goes back and everything hinges over top of your hips. So as you're moving, you're tilting forward on the way down, tilting back on the way up, and you're really just, I picture that goofy little dodo bird that dips in the water. That's exactly what you're doing here. You're just tilting back and forward, and then I let it touch every time. You don't have to. You can keep the tension on there. But as you go heavier, you're probably going to want to stop it, reset, and really drive from those glutes to the bottom again. So some people will say, do I use straps or not use straps? I actually use straps. I'm not showing you in the video just because this is really lightweight and doesn't matter, right? But when I actually do the lift itself, I'm going to use straps. I use VersaGrip specifically, but I really like those because I can just focus on the movement. I'm not worried about losing my grip. I'm not worried about grip strength. If I want that, I train on a different day. If I want forearms, I do a different day. If I want glutes, I do everything I can to make sure I'm focused on moving in the actual movement and not thinking about, holy crap, I'm going to drop this weight. All right, so hopefully from that, you got a couple little nuanced tips that you can add to these exercises that are really going to help you engage the muscle, engage your glutes, get them stronger, get them growing. So with that, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, please do that. Hit the notification bell. Get after it, get growing. I'll talk to you soon. Between my shirt and this bar, this is an obnoxious amount of blue. Should have put the red plates on here.